What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Rascal Garage. Got another episode for you today. Today we're going to be working on O2 bungs, right? Start to finish. So I have my 3-inch track exhaust that we make at rascalgarage.com. I have it all fitted up in the drill press. So first step in the process is we need to drill out holes. And what size holes, do you ask? 3/4 inch. The opening to the O2 bungs, I'll pull one out in a second, but they're 3/4 inch on the bottom, so that way fitment is good. We don't want the hole to be just big enough for the O2 sensor itself, because then if you weld it, you know, a little bit off to one side or what have you, it'll bind and it won't go in. So just make sure the hole's big enough the first time around. I get these O2 bungs from Stainless Bros. They're a partner to the channel. These guys are phenomenal. Arguably the best customer service in the game. Here's a part number if you're looking for it. So we'll get these opened up in a second. But for now, let's get to drilling out some bung holes. Okay, so now we got our bung holes drilled out. So now we can get our O2 bungs in place. Now the cool part about these ones from Stainless Bros, you can order different options of these. These ones are coped for 2 3/4 inch all the way up to 5-inch tube, and they have one size down, which is like 1.5 inches to 2.5 inches. So there's different coping variations. You can easily take this on your sander though and kind of notch it out or whatever to fit your tube perfectly, but this is a 3-inch tube and they fit perfect on there. There's probably less than a millimeter gap, so it's no big deal. So anyhow, first step in the process here is we'll get this thing fitted on, and we're going to throw on 2 tacks. I like to tack at about 4 o'clock and 10 o'clock if you're looking at this thing like a clock face. So we'll get those tacked on, and then yeah, we'll get this thing welded out. Alright, we got the welder fired up. Gonna get this thing tacked into place. So I have my welder set at 70 amps. With like 10 seconds of post flow, and that's perfect for tacking and welding these O2 bungs out. So we're going to throw a tack at about 4 o'clock and then another one at 10 o'clock. And you'll notice I'm starting, this is my left hand here, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to go from left to right, because this is going to be hot, so when I have my torch hand, I need somewhere to put it, and if I weld this one first, all this whole area is going to be very hot. I'm going to have nowhere to rest my hand. So we'll weld this one first, and then we'll move on to this one, right? Just thinking ahead a little bit in terms of getting these things welded both back to back. Check your fitment. Good. Now one thing when you do your first tack, push down on the opposite side of the O2 bung, because as it's cooling, it's going to want to lift that up and you'll have more of a gap. So now we're pushed down on it, so now we're good. Okay, so now this thing's tacked up. Double check your fitment once again, just to make sure everything's good, because it's way easier to grind your tacks off now at this point than grinding an entire weld off. That's a a much longer process. It's possible, but it's a much longer process. And one tip is when you make your tacks, use filler metal, so the majority of the weld is on the surface of your tube here. That will make those tacks much easier to grind off versus just doing a tack with the torch. The weld is more fused in with the base material here, and it'll just make that tack harder to get off. You'll have to actually grind into your tube yourself, and then you start to lose some of that aesthetic, right? We want this thing to be as clean as possible. So moving on to welding the piece, I don't want to start on my tack. I want to weld over that tack. So I like to start with the torch kind of as far up as I can go, and then work my way around kind of in a half moon shape, and then I'll rotate the piece and I'll do the same on the other side. And because this bung is coped, I'm going to have a few start and stops because I just want to make sure my hand is in the best position, and I want to make sure my welds are consistent and looking their best. So if I have to start and stop a couple more times to achieve that, it's okay in my opinion. So yeah, keep going. Alright, so the first half moon is done, so we'll rotate this piece around. So yep, we'll just do another kind of half moon, make sure we're welding right over that tack. That's how you do that. O2 bungs, pretty simple. I focus on having very consistent torch angle, torch position, so I can make sure that weld is consistent all the way around and aesthetically pleasing. Settings are 70 amps. The O2 bung is a lot thicker than the base material, that's 065 wall. And all this is 304 stainless steel, by the way. But yeah, 70 amps seems to be the sweet spot for this thing. So. Alright, now you can get a close-up of how the weld came out. Yeah, so overall, pretty happy with the outcome there. And you notice I had a few start and stops, and looking at the close-up, it's hard to identify where those locations were. And that's why I don't mind doing it. So I've kind of learned along the way to have good start and stop technique anyway. But yeah, that's welding O2 bungs, right? You gotta drill them out, get everything nice and cleaned up, tack it in a certain manner, and then yeah, throw your welds on there. So You know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, happy to answer them or share any more information about how to weld O2 bungs. But for now, I'm going to continue on, weld the other O2 bung, and continue building this 3-inch track style exhaust. So catch you next time. Thanks for watching.